The gunshot echoed through the restaurant at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday, and Elena Brooks, 30 years old, invisible to most of the world, made a choice that would destroy her old life forever. She threw herself in front of a stranger's child. The bullet tore through her shoulder. Blood pooled on cracked linoleum. And the man whose daughter she saved? Adrian Cole didn't just have money. He had the kind of power that could rebuild a person's entire existence or ruin it. But before we get to that moment, before the chaos and the blood and the choice that changed everything, you need to understand who Elena was before she became a headline. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button. And settle in, because this one's a ride. The morning Elena Brooks turned 30, she woke up to the sound of her mother coughing in the next room. Not the polite kind of cough you stifle in a movie theater. The deep, rattling kind that meant another trip to the ER was probably coming. Another bill she couldn't pay stacking on top of the others. Elena lay in her narrow bed, barely wide enough for one person, springs digging into her back, and stared at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a lopsided heart. She'd stopped making birthday wishes years ago. "Elena?" Her mother's voice was thin, threaded through with exhaustion. "Coming, Mom." Elena rolled out of bed, her feet hitting the cold floor of the studio apartment she shared with her mother in a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. The heat barely worked. The landlord never answered his phone, and the neighbors upstairs seemed to move furniture at 2 a.m. as a hobby. But it was home, or at least it was what she could afford. She pulled on her waitress uniform, black pants that were getting shiny at the knees, white button-down that she'd bleached so many times the fabric was starting to go transparent. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror was brief, practiced. She didn't linger. Hadn't in years. Brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup. She'd learned early that trying to look pretty just invited the wrong kind of attention from customers. Face scrubbed clean, invisible. That was safer. "Did you take your meds?" Elena asked, pushing open the door to her mother's room. Margaret Brooks was 58 but looked 70. Lung disease didn't care about fairness. It had taken a vibrant woman who used to dance in the kitchen while making dinner and turned her into someone who struggled to walk to the bathroom. "Can't afford a refill till next week," Margaret said, not meeting her daughter's eyes. Elena's jaw tightened. "Mom, don't start. We've got food, we've got a roof, the meds can wait a few days." They couldn't. They both knew it. But this was an old argument, worn smooth by repetition. Elena checked the time on her phone, a cracked screen she'd been meaning to replace for 8 months, and grabbed her coat. "I work till close tonight. Mrs. Chen from downstairs said she'd check on you around 6. "I don't need a babysitter." "I know, but I need to know you're okay." Margaret's expression softened. "You're a good girl, Elena." "I'm 30, Mom. Not exactly a girl anymore." "You'll always be my girl." Elena kissed her mother's forehead and left before the tightness in her chest could turn into something messier. The restaurant was called Rosie's. Not because anyone there was named Rosie, but because the previous owner had named it after his daughter before gambling away the business and disappearing into whatever hole people like that disappeared into. The new owner, Tommy Chen, had kept the name because changing the sign cost money. Elena had worked there for 6 years. 6 years of grease-stained aprons and burnt coffee and customers who snapped their fingers like she was a dog. 6 years of smiling when she wanted to scream, of pretending she didn't notice when men old enough to be her father stared at her chest, of scraping together tips that barely covered groceries. She'd had dreams once, big, stupid, impossible dreams. She was going to be an artist. She was going to live in a loft with huge windows and northern light. She was going to paint things that made people feel something true. She'd been accepted to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago with a partial scholarship. She'd been so close. Then her father died. Heart attack at 52, gone before the ambulance arrived, and her mother got sick. And the medical bills started piling up, and the scholarship didn't cover enough, and there was no one else, and dreams were a luxury Elena Brooks couldn't afford. So she'd put down the paintbrush and picked up a notepad for taking orders. That was a decade ago. "You're late," Tommy said when she walked in through the back door. "By 3 minutes." 3 minutes is late. Elena tied on her apron without responding. Tommy liked to bark, but he was mostly harmless. Mostly. He paid under the table, which meant no benefits, no sick days, no anything. But he didn't ask questions, and he let her pick up extra shifts when she needed them. The restaurant was empty. It usually was until the lunch rush hit around 11:30. Rosie's wasn't the kind of place people went for special occasions. It was the kind of place people went when they were broke or desperate or didn't know the neighborhood. Vinyl booths patched with duct tape, fluorescent lights that flickered, a jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked since 2015. The whole place smelled like old grease and bleach. "Table 4's been nursing one coffee for an hour," Tommy said, nodding toward a man in his 60s reading a newspaper. "Try to upsell him on something." "He's on a fixed income, Tommy. And I'm running a business, not a charity." Elena grabbed the coffee pot and made her rounds, refilled the old man's cup without comment, took an order from a construction worker who barely looked at her, wiped down tables that were already clean because standing still meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering all the things she'd given up. The lunch rush came and went, mediocre, forgettable. And then, at 1:47 p.m., the door opened and everything changed. He didn't belong there. That was Elena's first thought when Adrian Cole walked into Rosie's with his daughter. He looked like someone who ate at restaurants with wait lists and sommeliers, not places where the ketchup bottles were refilled from industrial-sized containers in the back. Tailored coat, expensive watch, the kind of haircut that cost more than Elena made in a week. And his face, sharp jaw, dark eyes, the kind of handsome that wasn't friendly. It was the handsome of someone who'd learned early that people wanted things from him. He was holding the hand of a little girl, maybe 4 or 5, with dark curls and huge brown eyes that looked too sad for a kid that young. "Sit anywhere," Elena said automatically, "because that's what you said at Rosie's." Adrian scanned the restaurant like he was evaluating a potential threat. His gaze lingered on the cracked vinyl, the flickering lights, the suspicious stain on the wall that Tommy insisted was vintage character. The little girl tugged on his hand. "Daddy, I'm tired." His expression shifted, just barely, just enough that Elena noticed. The hard edges softened. "I know, sweetheart. Let's sit down." They chose a booth by the window. The girl, Rosie, Elena would learn later, though the coincidence wouldn't hit her until much later, climbed onto the seat and immediately slumped against her father's arm. Elena approached with menus and water glasses. "Can I get you folks started with something to drink?" "Coffee, black," Adrian said without looking at her. Elena was used to that, being looked through instead of at. "And for you, sweetie?" Elena directed the question to Rosie, crouching down a little so they were eye level. The girl didn't respond, just buried her face in her father's coat. "She's had a difficult morning," Adrian said, and there was something in his voice, not quite an apology, not quite an explanation. Elena noticed the hospital bracelet on Rosie's tiny wrist, the kind they gave kids in the ER. "Rough day?" Elena asked gently. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You could say that." "Well," Elena set the menus down, "we've got chocolate cake that's pretty good at making rough days better. And it comes with ice cream if you ask nicely." Rosie peeked out from her father's coat. "Chocolate?" "The good kind, with fudge frosting." "Can I have some, Daddy?" Adrian looked at Elena properly for the first time. Really looked at her. And for a second, just a second, something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Not of each other, but of something shared. Exhaustion. The weight of carrying someone else's pain. "It's 1:30 in the afternoon, he said. "Best time for cake," Elena replied. "Before dinner, after breakfast, prime cake hours." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You make a compelling argument." "I've had practice." "Fine. 1 slice of chocolate cake, with ice cream." "And a Brave Day candle," Elena added. Rosie's eyes widened. "What's a Brave Day candle?" "It's a special candle for kids who had to be brave today. You make a wish and blow it out, and the wish comes extra true because you earned it." It was something Elena had made up on the spot, something she would have wanted when she was little and scared. "Can I really have one?" Rosie asked. "Absolutely." Adrian was staring at her now with an expression she couldn't quite read. "That's not on the menu." "No," Elena agreed, "but brave kids get special treatment." She headed back to the kitchen before he could respond, before the tightness in her chest could become something visible, because that little girl with the hospital bracelet and the sad eyes reminded Elena of herself at that age. Scared, trying to be good, hoping someone would notice. Tommy was smoking by the back door, which was definitely a health code violation, but Elena had long since stopped caring about things like that. "We have any birthday candles?" she asked. "What?" "Candles, the little ones." Tommy shrugged. "Check the drawer by the register. Why?" "Just need one." She found a pink candle stub, probably left over from someone's birthday years ago. She cut a generous slice of chocolate cake, bigger than the menu portion, added 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream, and stuck the candle in the center. When she carried it out to the table, Rosie's whole face lit up. "You really got me a candle." "I promised, didn't I?" Elena set the plate down and pulled a lighter from her apron pocket. She lit the candle, the small flame dancing between them. "Make a wish," Elena said. "A good one." Rosie squeezed her eyes shut, her little face scrunched in concentration. Then she took a deep breath and blew out the candle in one try. "What did you wish for?" Adrian asked. "Can't tell, or it won't come true," Rosie said seriously. Elena caught Adrian's eye. He mouthed the words, "Thank you." She nodded and stepped back to give them privacy. But she kept watching from across the room as that little girl ate her cake with the kind of joy that only kids can manage, the kind that's so pure it hurts to witness. And she watched Adrian watch his daughter, his whole body finally relaxing, the tension in his shoulders easing. For a moment, Rosie's restaurant felt a little less like a dump, and a little more like a place where something good could happen. Elena didn't know, couldn't have known, that in less than 10 minutes, she'd make a choice that would crack her life wide open. The young man came in at 2:14 p.m. Elena noticed him immediately because he didn't fit. Wrong energy, twitchy. His eyes kept darting around the restaurant like he was cataloging exits. He was maybe 22, 23, thin in the way that spoke of missed meals and bad decisions. Dirty jeans. Hoodie pulled up even though it wasn't cold outside. Every instinct Elena had developed from 6 years of reading customers started screaming. She moved toward the register, hand already reaching for her phone in her apron pocket. "We're open," Tommy called from the kitchen, oblivious. The young man's hand went to his waistband, and Elena saw the gun. It wasn't a big gun, not like in movies, just a small black handgun that looked almost fake in his shaking hand. "Nobody move!" His voice cracked on the words. I just need the money from the register. That's all. Nobody has to get hurt." The restaurant went silent. The construction worker at the counter slowly raised his hands. The old man with the newspaper froze. Tommy appeared in the kitchen doorway, face going pale, and Elena's eyes went immediately to the booth by the window. Adrian had pushed Rosie behind him, his body a shield, but he was too slow, too far away. And the gunman was panicking, his finger on the trigger, the weapon swinging wildly as he shouted, "I said don't move, don't—" The gun fired. Later, people would ask Elena why she did it, why she ran toward the danger instead of away from it, why she threw herself between a bullet and a child she'd met 15 minutes ago. She never had a good answer. Maybe it was because she'd spent 10 years disappearing, making herself small, asking for nothing. Maybe it was because that little girl deserved better than being shot in a restaurant on a Thursday afternoon. Maybe it was because for once, just once, Elena wanted to matter. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe she just moved. The bullet hit her left shoulder, spinning her backward. The pain came a second later, white-hot, blinding, the kind of pain that doesn't feel real. She hit the floor hard. Somewhere far away, someone was screaming. The construction worker tackled the gunman. Tommy was shouting into a phone, and Adrian Cole was suddenly there, kneeling beside her, his hands pressing against her shoulder. "Stay with me," he said, and his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Elena, your name tag says Elena. Stay with me." "Is she okay?" Elena managed to ask. "The little girl, is she—" "She's fine. Because of you, she's fine." Elena's vision was starting to blur at the edges. "Good. That's good. Don't close your eyes. Look at me. Stay here." But the edges were getting darker, and the pain was fading into something distant and cold, and Elena thought maybe this wasn't the worst way to go. Doing something that mattered, saving someone. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was Adrian's face above hers, and the way he looked at her, really looked at her, like she was someone worth seeing. Elena woke up 3 days later in a hospital room that was too nice to be covered by the insurance she didn't have. The first thing she noticed was the pain, dull, throbbing, centered in her left shoulder. The second thing was the flowers, dozens of arrangements crowding every available surface. The third thing was Adrian Cole, asleep in a chair beside her bed. He looked terrible, unshaved, rumpled, his expensive clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. Elena tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The pain spiked, sharp enough to make her gasp. Adrian's eyes snapped open. "Don't move, you'll tear your stitches." "What?" Her voice came out as a rasp. "What happened?" "You got shot saving my daughter's life." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "The bullet went through your shoulder, missed the major arteries, but you lost a lot of blood. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days? The doctor said it was touch and go for a while, but you're stubborn, apparently. Elena's mind was struggling to catch up. My mom, she's here. She's been here the whole time. I sent her to get food about an hour ago. I can't afford this. The words came automatically. This room, the care, I don't have insurance that covers. It's handled. You can't. I can, and I did. Adrian's voice was firm. You took a bullet for my daughter. The least I can do is make sure you don't go bankrupt recovering from it. Elena closed her eyes. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. People like Adrian Cole didn't sit beside hospital beds of people like her. Why are you here? She asked. Where else would I be? I don't know. Anywhere. Everywhere. You don't know me. You saved Rosie's life. That doesn't mean you owe me. It means everything. His voice cracked just slightly. Do you have any idea what you did? That bullet was headed straight for her. If you hadn't moved, if you hadn't been exactly where you were... He stopped, cleared his throat, looked away. I just reacted, Elena said quietly. Most people don't. Most people freeze. You didn't. The door opened, and a nurse came in with Margaret Brooks right behind her. Elena's mother looked a decade older than she had 3 days ago, her eyes red from crying. Baby. Margaret rushed to the bedside, careful not to jostle Elena's shoulder. Oh, thank God, you scared me half to death. I'm okay, Mom. You got shot. But I'm okay. Margaret cupped Elena's face with shaking hands. Don't you ever do anything like that again. You hear me? Don't you dare. Can't promise that. Elena Marie Brooks, I love you, Mom. Margaret dissolved into tears. Adrian stood, giving them space. I'll let you two have some time. But Elena, there are some people outside who'd like to meet you, when you're ready. People? A lot of people. He hesitated. The story made the news. You're kind of famous. Yeah, famous was an understatement. The shooting at Rosie's had gone viral. Someone had captured the whole thing on their phone, shaky footage of Elena throwing herself in front of Rosie, the gunshot, Adrian kneeling beside her. Waitress saves billionaire's daughter was the headline on every news site. Elena's face was everywhere. Her picture from the restaurant's employee file, grainy and unflattering, was being shared thousands of times. The hospital had to hire security to keep reporters out of her room. And the visitors kept coming. The mayor showed up with a proclamation. A local news anchor wanted an exclusive interview. A talent agent left a business card. Strangers sent flowers and cards and offers of money. It was overwhelming, surreal. Elena kept waiting to wake up and find herself back in her cramped apartment, this whole thing just a fever dream. But Adrian kept coming back, every morning, every evening. Sometimes with Rosie, who would climb carefully onto the bed and tell Elena about her day. Sometimes alone, when Rosie was with her grandmother. He never stayed long, never pushed. Just checked in, made sure she had everything she needed, and left. On the 5th day, when the worst of the pain had subsided and Elena could sit up without wanting to scream, Adrian brought coffee from a place that definitely wasn't the hospital cafeteria. Thought you might want something that doesn't taste like cardboard, he said, handing her a cup. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, Elena sipping her coffee and trying not to think about how much this probably cost. Can I ask you something? Adrian said finally. Sure. Why did you do it? And don't say you just reacted. I've watched the footage. You saw the gun, you saw where it was pointing, and you ran toward it. That's not instinct, that's a choice. Elena stared into her coffee. You ever feel invisible? What? Invisible. Like you could disappear tomorrow, and the world would just keep spinning like you were never there. Adrian's expression shifted. Yes. Actually, I have. I felt like that for 10 years. Ever since I gave up art school to take care of my mom, every day I wake up, go to work, come home, and nobody notices. I'm just the waitress who refills your coffee. I don't matter. Elena. But that day, in that moment, I mattered. That little girl needed someone, and I was there, and I could help. For once in my life, I could actually make a difference. She looked up at him. So yeah, I chose it. I'd choose it again. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. You're wrong about one thing. What's that? You've always mattered. You just didn't have anyone around who bothered to see it. The words hit harder than they should have. Elena had to look away before the tears came. Rosie wants to know when you're coming home, Adrian said, changing the subject with the grace of someone who recognized when to retreat. She's convinced we need to have a proper thank you party, with cake, and apparently a Brave Day crown made of construction paper. Elena laughed, then winced as the movement pulled at her stitches. Tell her I'd be honored. The doctors say you can be discharged in a few days. Do you have somewhere safe to go? Somewhere you can recover properly? Elena thought of her apartment, the broken heat, the neighbors, the narrow bed, her mother's cough. I'll be fine. Adrian gave her a look that said he saw right through the lie. What if I had another option? I'm not taking your money. It's not money, it's a place to stay. Just for a few weeks until you're healed. Somewhere safe and quiet, with space for your mother too. Adrian, please. The word came out raw. Let me do this. You saved my daughter's life. You almost died. The least I can do is make sure you have a decent place to recover. Elena wanted to say no. Pride demanded it, but her shoulder hurt and she was so tired, and the thought of going back to that apartment made her want to cry. Just until I'm healed, she said finally. Just until you're healed, Adrian agreed. He was lying, though. They both were. Because what started in that hospital room, what began with coffee and quiet conversations and a billionaire who kept showing up, was already becoming something neither of them could walk away from. Elena just didn't know it yet. Done. 2 weeks later, Elena was discharged from the hospital with her arm in a sling, a bottle of painkillers, and instructions to take it easy for at least a month. The temporary apartment Adrian had arranged turned out to be a penthouse in a building with a doorman. Elena stood in the marble lobby, her mother beside her, and seriously considered turning around. This is too much, she whispered. It's just for a few weeks, Margaret said, though her eyes were as wide as Elena's. The doorman smiled. Ms. Brooks? Mr. Cole is expecting you. 18th floor. The elevator had mirrors and soft lighting and probably cost more than Elena's entire yearly salary. She watched her reflection rise through the building, a woman in second-hand clothes with a sling on her arm, looking completely out of place. The doors opened directly into the apartment. No hallway. No neighbors. Just straight into a space so big Elena couldn't process it at first. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Hardwood floors that gleamed, furniture that looked like it came from magazines. A kitchen with appliances Elena didn't recognize. 2 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. And light. So much natural light. Holy mother of... Margaret stopped herself. Adrian appeared from one of the bedrooms, Rosie trailing behind him. Welcome, I hope it's suitable. Suitable? Elena's voice came out higher than intended. This is... I can't afford... You're not paying for it. It's one of my properties. It was sitting empty anyway. Adrian, this is insane. Elena! Rosie ran over, carefully avoiding Elena's injured side. You're here. Daddy said you were coming, and I made you a card and Mrs. Chen helped me with the spelling. She thrust a piece of construction paper into Elena's hand. The card was covered in crayon drawings of flowers and stick figures, with "Thank you for being brave" written in careful letters. Elena's throat tightened. This is beautiful, sweetheart. Do you like your new home? It's not... Elena caught Adrian's expression. It's wonderful. Thank you. Come see your room. It has a big bed and everything." Rosie grabbed Elena's good hand and pulled her toward the bedrooms. Margaret followed, leaving Adrian in the living room. The bedroom was bigger than Elena's entire studio apartment. King-size bed with white linens, a dresser, a desk by the window. And in the corner, almost hidden, an easel. Elena stopped dead. Beside the easel was a set of oil paints, professional grade, the kind she used to dream about in art school, canvases stacked against the wall, brushes in every size. "I remembered you said you used to paint," Adrian said from the doorway. "Thought you might want to try again, while you're recovering." Elena couldn't speak, couldn't process this, any of this. "This is too much," she managed finally. "It's just paint and canvas." "You know it's not." Adrian stepped into the room, his voice going soft. "You saved my daughter's life, Elena. You almost died doing it. If letting you stay in an empty apartment and giving you some art supplies makes me feel slightly less like I owe you everything, then please, let me have that. You don't owe me anything. I owe you the world." They stood there, the air between them charged with something Elena didn't have a name for, something that felt dangerous and thrilling and completely terrifying. Rosie broke the moment by climbing onto the bed. "This mattress is bouncy. Watch." She started jumping, and Adrian moved to stop her, and Elena laughed despite herself, and just like that, the tension broke. That night, after Adrian and Rosie left and Margaret had fallen asleep in the other bedroom, Elena stood at the window overlooking Chicago. The city glittered below her, 1,000 lives playing out in 1,000 windows. She thought about the path that had brought her here, the choices and the compromises, the dreams deferred and the years disappeared. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 weeks ago, invisible, exhausted, convinced she didn't matter. And she thought about the gun and the split-second choice and the way everything had changed in the space of a heartbeat. Elena Brooks had spent a decade being afraid of risk, afraid of wanting too much, afraid of being seen. But standing in this borrowed apartment with her shoulders still aching and her future suddenly uncertain, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was terrifying. It was everything. And somewhere across the city, in another penthouse with another view, Adrian Cole sat in his study and tried to work, tried to focus on contracts and meetings and the empire he'd built. But his mind kept drifting to a waitress with sad eyes and unexpected courage, a woman who'd thrown herself in front of a bullet without hesitation, who'd smiled at his daughter like she was precious, who looked at his wealth and his power and his carefully constructed life and saw straight through to the loneliness underneath. He told himself this was about gratitude, about debt, about making sure she was taken care of because that's what decent people did. He was lying. He'd been lying since the moment he saw her on that restaurant floor, bleeding out while asking if Rosie was okay. Adrian Cole had spent 3 years burying himself in work after his wife died. 3 years of being a good father but a hollow man. 3 years of going through the motions while feeling nothing. Until a shy waitress in a rundown restaurant reminded him what it felt like to care. He picked up his phone, put it down, picked it up again. Then he texted Elena, "Get some rest. I'll check on you tomorrow." Her response came a minute later. "Thank you for all of this. I don't deserve it." Adrian stared at those words for a long time before typing back, "You deserve everything good the world has to offer. You just haven't realized it yet." He didn't send it. Instead, he wrote, "Sleep well." And in their separate corners of the city, two people who'd collided by chance and circumstance lay awake in the dark, thinking about each other and pretending they weren't. The story was just beginning. But the ending, the real ending, with all its complications and heartbreak and unexpected joy, was already being written in the space between what they wanted and what they thought they deserved. Elena Brooks had saved a little girl's life. She didn't know yet that she was about to save her own. The first morning in the penthouse, Elena woke up disoriented. The bed was too soft. The room was too quiet. For a panicked moment, she thought she'd died in the hospital, and this was some kind of afterlife waiting room. Then her shoulder throbbed, and reality came flooding back. She was in Adrian Cole's apartment, living in a space that probably cost more per month than she'd earned in the past year, sleeping in sheets with a thread count she didn't know existed. The clock on the nightstand read 6:47 a.m., old habits. Even with nowhere to go, her body still woke her up for the breakfast shift at Rosie's. Elena sat up carefully, testing her range of motion. The pain was better than yesterday. The doctors said she'd been lucky. The bullet had missed bone, missed major nerves. Give it time, they said. Physical therapy. Rest, rest. Like that was something Elena knew how to do. She padded out to the kitchen in the t-shirt and sweatpants her mother had packed from their apartment. The morning light was pouring through those massive windows, turning the whole space gold. Margaret was already up, standing at the counter with a cup of coffee, staring out at the view like she couldn't quite believe it was real. "You're up early," Elena said. Her mother turned, smiling. "Old habits. Besides, I didn't want to waste a single minute of this. When are we ever going to live somewhere like this again?" "Mom, I know, it's temporary, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it." Margaret poured Elena a cup of coffee without asking. "How's the shoulder?" "Sore, but okay." They stood together at the window, drinking coffee in silence. Below them, the city was waking up. Cars and buses and people moving through their lives, unaware that 18 floors above them, a waitress and her sick mother were living in a penthouse they didn't belong in. "You need to call Tommy," Margaret said. "Let him know what's happening." Elena's stomach twisted. She'd been avoiding that conversation. "I will." "When?" "Soon." "Elena, what am I supposed to say?" "Hey, Tommy, I got shot. I'm living in a billionaire's apartment. I'll be back when my shoulder heals. He's going to think I've lost my mind." "He's going to think you're recovering from a gunshot wound, which you are." Margaret set down her coffee cup. "You can't just disappear on him. He needs to know if you're coming back." The question hung in the air between them. If she was coming back, Elena had been telling herself this was temporary. A brief detour while she healed, then back to real life. Back to the restaurant, and the bills, and the endless grind of survival. But standing in this apartment with natural light and space to breathe, the thought of going back felt like drowning. "I'll call him today," Elena said. She didn't. Instead, she spent the morning exploring the apartment like a guest in a museum, opening cabinets filled with expensive dishes, running her hand along furniture that probably cost more than a car, standing in the second bathroom, and trying to process that she had access to this much space. Around noon, her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "How are you feeling?" Elena stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. "Better, thank you. Rosie wants to know if you like grilled cheese sandwiches. Who doesn't like grilled cheese? She's very particular about the cheese-to-bread ratio. I've been warned not to embarrass her with subpar technique." Elena found herself smiling. "Tell her I have complete faith in her grilled cheese abilities. She'll be relieved. We'll be by around 2 if that works for you." Elena's heart did something complicated. "You don't have to keep checking on me." "I know. See you at 2. Margaret noticed her staring at her phone. "Adrian? Him and Rosie are coming by." "Again?" "He's just being nice." Her mother gave her a look that Elena pretended not to see. They arrived at 2:03, Adrian in dark jeans and a sweater that probably cost what Elena used to make in a month. Rosie in overalls and light-up sneakers carrying a lunchbox decorated with unicorns. "I brought supplies," Rosie announced, marching straight to the kitchen. "Daddy said your kitchen has a stove that's fancier than ours, but I told him grilled cheese doesn't care about fancy, it cares about love." Adrian caught Elena's eye. "She's been practicing that line all morning." "It's a good line." They gathered in the kitchen, all of them, Margaret included, and watched Rosie direct the grilled cheese operation with the seriousness of a general planning a campaign. "Butter on both sides of the bread," she instructed. "That's non-negotiable." "Noted," Adrian said, buttering bread with careful precision. "And the cheese has to be American. I know fancy people use other kinds, but those are wrong." Elena bit back a laugh. "American cheese it is. And you have to flip it exactly 2 times, not 3, not 1. 2. "She's very specific," Adrian murmured. "I can hear you, Daddy." They made 4 sandwiches, golden and perfect, the cheese melting out the sides just right. Rosie insisted they eat at the table by the window with napkins and everything, like this was a proper restaurant. "This is the best grilled cheese I've ever had," Elena said, and she wasn't lying. Maybe it was the company. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was just that she couldn't remember the last time someone had made her lunch. "Really?" Rosie's face lit up. "Really, truly." "Better than your restaurant makes?" Elena thought of Rosie's, with its industrial griddle and processed cheese slices, and Tommy's philosophy that food was fuel, nothing more. Way better, Rosie beamed. Then, without warning, she climbed out of her chair and very carefully crawled into Elena's lap, avoiding her injured shoulder. I'm glad you're okay, she said quietly. I was really scared when you got hurt. Elena's throat tightened. I'm okay, sweetheart. See? All healing up. Daddy said you saved my life. He said if you weren't there, I might not be here. And that means you're the bravest person in the whole world. Elena looked at Adrian, who was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read, something raw and unguarded. I think you're pretty brave too, Elena said. Hospital visits are scary. You handled it like a champion. That's what Daddy said, but I cried. Brave people cry. That's how you know they're being brave. They're scared, but they do the thing anyway. Rosie considered this. Are you scared sometimes? All the time. But you still do things. I try to. Rosie nodded, satisfied with this answer, and settled against Elena's chest like she belonged there. Margaret excused herself to lie down. Her breathing had been worse lately, though she kept insisting she was fine. Adrian started cleaning up the kitchen, waving away Elena's offer to help. You're recovering. I've got it. It's your apartment, which is why I know where everything goes. Elena watched him move through the kitchen with easy familiarity, this billionaire doing dishes in designer jeans, and felt the world tilt slightly. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why are you doing all this? And don't say it's because I saved Rosie. There's a difference between gratitude and… She gestured vaguely at the apartment, at him, at everything, all of this. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his hand stilling in the soapy water. You want the honest answer? Please. I don't know. He turned to face her. I've been trying to figure it out myself. At first it was gratitude, you're right. You saved my daughter's life. But then you woke up in that hospital and you were so worried about your mom, about the bills, about taking up space, and I realized you'd spent your whole life making yourself small so other people would be comfortable. That's not… It is. You apologize for getting shot, Elena. You took a bullet, and your first instinct was to say sorry for the inconvenience. The words hit harder than they should have. So maybe I'm doing this because someone should have done it years ago, Adrian continued. Maybe I'm doing this because my daughter looks at you like you hung the moon, and I haven't seen her that happy since her mother died. Or maybe I'm doing this because when I sit in this apartment that's been empty for 2 years because I couldn't bring myself to sell it, or rent it, or do anything with it, and I see you here, it feels less empty. The air between them went very still. Rosie stirred in Elena's lap. I'm sleepy. Let's get you home then, Bug. Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. Say goodbye to Elena. Can we come back tomorrow? If Elena wants visitors. Rosie looked up at Elena with those huge brown eyes. Do you want visitors? Always, Elena said, and meant it. After they left, the apartment felt bigger, quieter. Elena stood at the window with her good arm wrapped around herself and tried to process what had just happened. Adrian Cole had just confessed. What exactly? That he liked having her here, that his daughter was attached to her, that the apartment felt less empty? It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't even close to one. But it was something, and Elena had no idea what to do with it. The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Adrian and Rosie came by almost every day. Sometimes for lunch, sometimes just to check in. Rosie would tell Elena about her day, preschool and playgrounds, and the very serious drama of who got to be the line leader. Adrian would make sure Elena had everything she needed, that her physical therapy was going well, that she was actually resting instead of just claiming to. And slowly, carefully, Elena started to paint again. It felt strange at first. She'd stand in front of the easel with a brush in her hand and nothing would come. 10 years of not creating had built up scar tissue in her imagination. But then she'd remember something. A moment. The way light hit water, the angle of Rosie's smile, the shadows in Adrian's eyes when he thought no one was looking, and the brush would move. The first painting was terrible, muddy colors and confused composition. Elena almost threw it out. The second one was better. By the third, she remembered why she'd loved this. The way paint could capture something true that words couldn't touch. The way a canvas could hold feelings too big for ordinary life. Margaret noticed. You're painting again. Just messing around. Elena, you're glowing. I'm not. You are. I haven't seen you look like this in years. Elena cleaned her brushes, not meeting her mother's eyes. It's just nice to have the time. It's more than that. Margaret came to stand beside her, looking at the canvas. This is good, baby. Really good. It's rough. It's alive. That's what matters. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Her shoulder ached and her mind wouldn't quiet. She got up, intending to get water, and found herself in front of the easel instead. She painted until sunrise, lost in it, the way she used to be, the world narrowing down to color and light, and the feeling of something true taking shape under her hands. When Margaret found her in the morning, Elena had finished a portrait of Rosie, the little girl mid-laugh, joy radiating from every brushstroke. Oh, Elena, I don't know what came over me. I saw her in my head and I had to get it out. You should show Adrian. No, it's not good enough. It's beautiful. It's practice. But when Adrian came by that afternoon, Margaret betrayed her immediately. Elena painted something for Rosie, she announced. Elena shot her mother a look of pure betrayal. Mom. What? You did. Adrian's expression shifted. You paint? Used to. I'm just getting back into it. Can I see? Every instinct Elena had said no. It was too personal, too revealing. He'd see everything she was trying to hide in the brushstrokes, and the colors, and the way she'd captured his daughter. But Rosie was already pulling him toward the bedroom, chattering about Brave Day candles and grilled cheese, and Margaret was smiling like this was all part of some plan Elena hadn't been told about. Adrian stood in front of the painting for a long time, not saying anything, just looking. Adrian? Elena said finally. If you hate it, I don't hate it. His voice came out rough. When did you do this? Last night. I couldn't sleep. You captured her perfectly. That smile, that's exactly... He stopped, cleared his throat. This is really good, Elena. Like gallery good. It's not... I'm serious. I know art. I collect it. This is special. Elena felt her face heat. It was just something I needed to do. Can I buy it from you? What? No. Why not? Because it's a gift. You can't buy a gift. Then can I have it? For Rosie's room? The thought of her work hanging in their home made Elena's heart do something complicated. If you really want it. I really want it. Rosie appeared in the doorway. That's me. Elena, that's me. It is you, Bug, Adrian confirmed. I look so happy. That's because Elena sees you the way you really are. He was looking at Elena when he said it, and the weight of that look made her breath catch. That night, after they left, Elena stood in front of her easel and started another painting. This one of Adrian and Rosie together, the way they'd looked making grilled cheese, his careful focus, her wild joy. The love between them, obvious and uncomplicated. She painted until her shoulder screamed in protest, until Margaret dragged her away from the canvas, until the light was gone and the image was burned into her retinas. And when she finally slept, she dreamed of a life where she was allowed to want things, where she could paint and breathe and maybe, just maybe, matter to someone beyond what she could do for them. The physical therapy was brutal. Twice a week, Elena went to a clinic in a building so nice she kept checking to make sure she was in the right place. Her therapist was a woman named Marissa, who had the gentle demeanor of a kindergarten teacher and the grip strength of a professional wrestler. You're compensating, Marissa said during their third session, watching Elena try to lift her arm. It hurts. Pain is information. Listen to what it's telling you. It's telling me to stop. It's telling you to move differently. Big difference. Elena gritted her teeth and tried again. The scar tissue pulled, tight and angry, but her arm went higher than yesterday. Better, Marissa said. Keep that up, and you'll have full range of motion in a few months. Months? Gunshot wounds don't heal overnight. You want to do this right or do this fast? Right, Elena admitted. Good answer. On the way back to the apartment, Elena's phone rang. Tommy. She'd been avoiding his calls for 2 weeks, letting them go to voicemail, telling herself she'd call back later. But standing on a street corner in a neighborhood she didn't belong in, with her arm aching and her future uncertain, she answered. Tommy? Jesus Christ, Elena, I thought you were dead. I'm sorry, I should have called. Yeah, you should have. I had to find out from the news that one of my employees got shot. You know how that looked? I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and tell me when you're coming back. The question Elena had been avoiding. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? The doctor said 6 weeks. It's been 3. You cleared for work or not? It's not that simple. Seems pretty simple to me. You either can work or you can't. Elena closed her eyes. I need more time. How much time? I don't know, Tommy. I'm still in physical therapy. My shoulder's not fine. Take another month. But after that, I need to know. I can't hold your position forever. I understand. Do you? His voice softened slightly. Look, I get it. You've been through something terrible. But bills don't stop coming just because you got shot. You need this job, Elena. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've moved on to better things. The accusation stung. It's not like that. Then what's it like? Elena didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. Tommy sighed. 1 month, Elena. Then I need a decision. He hung up. Elena stood on the sidewalk, commuters streaming past her, and felt the walls of her borrowed life closing in. She was living in a penthouse she couldn't afford, painting in the middle of the night like she was someone who had the luxury of following dreams, eating grilled cheese sandwiches with a billionaire and his daughter, like this was normal, like she belonged. But she didn't belong. Not really. This was temporary, a brief escape from real life. Eventually, she'd have to go back to Rosie's restaurant, to the cramped apartment, to the version of herself who knew better than to want things she couldn't have. The thought made her want to cry. Instead, she went back to the penthouse, took her pain medication, and stared at the painting of Adrian and Rosie until the light faded. Margaret found her there, hours later. You talked to Tommy. It wasn't a question. He wants to know when I'm coming back. What did you tell him? That I need time. And do you? Need time? Elena turned to look at her mother. I don't know what I need anymore. Margaret sat down beside her, moving carefully. Her breathing was worse today. Elena could hear the rattle in her lungs. You need to stop living for everyone else, Margaret said. You gave up art school for me. You work yourself to the bone for me. You took a bullet for a child you didn't know. When are you going to do something just for Elena? I'm painting again. That's for me. Is it? Or is it just another way to make yourself useful? The words were too close to the truth. Elena looked away. Baby, listen to me. Margaret took her hand. I love you more than anything in this world, but watching you disappear yourself for the past 10 years has been the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than being sick. Harder than losing your father. Mom, you deserve happiness, Elena. You deserve a life that's bigger than just survival. And if Adrian Cole is offering you a chance to figure out what that life could look like, maybe you should take it. It's not that simple. Why not? Because people like me don't end up with people like him. That's not how the world works. Who told you that? Nobody had to tell me. I have eyes. Margaret squeezed her hand, then opened them wider. Look at how that man looks at you. Look at how his daughter lights up when you're around. Look at yourself in the mirror and see what I see. A woman who's brave and kind and talented and deserving of every good thing. Elena's eyes stung. I'm scared. Of what? Of wanting this. Of believing it could be real and then losing it. Oh, baby. Margaret pulled her close, careful of her shoulder. That's the risk of being alive. You might lose, but you might win. And you'll never know if you don't try. They sat together in the fading light, mother and daughter, holding on to each other the way they had for the past 10 years. Eventually, Margaret went to bed, her cough echoing through the apartment. Elena stayed by the window and watched the city glitter below. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. Rosie wanted me to tell you that she showed her preschool teacher the painting you did. The teacher wants to know if you do commissions. Elena smiled despite herself. Tell her I'm flattered, but I'm just getting back into it. She also wanted me to tell you that you should believe in yourself because brave people believe in themselves. She's pretty wise for a 4-year-old. She gets it from her mother. The mention of Adrian's late wife sent a jolt through Elena. They never talked about her, never acknowledged the ghost that surely lived in the spaces between them. "I'm sure she was amazing," Elena typed. The response took a while. "She was. But so are you." Elena stared at those words until they blurred. "Get some sleep, Adrian. You too." But neither of them did. Elena because she was too wired, too confused, too aware that her borrowed time was running out. And Adrian because, across the city, he was sitting in his study thinking about a woman who'd crashed into his carefully controlled life and cracked it wide open. He'd meant what he said in the kitchen. He didn't fully understand why he was doing this, why he found excuses to see her every day, why Rosie's happiness had become tangled up with Elena's presence, why an empty apartment suddenly felt like home when she was in it. Caroline had been gone for 3 years. 3 years of grief and guilt and going through the motions. 3 years of being a good father, but a ghost of a husband, of a man, of a person. And then Elena Brooks threw herself in front of a bullet and reminded him what it felt like to be alive. It wasn't fair to her. He knew that. She was vulnerable and recovering and probably confused about what any of this meant. He should back off, give her space, stop finding reasons to see her. But he couldn't. Not when she looked at Rosie with such gentle affection. Not when she painted with the kind of focus that spoke of a passion too long denied. Not when she smiled, really smiled, and her whole face transformed into something radiant. Adrian picked up his phone, put it down, picked it up again. Then he called his lawyer. "I need you to look into something," he said. The next morning, Adrian showed up at the penthouse at 8 a.m. with coffee and pastries from a bakery that definitely didn't deliver. "We need to talk," he said. Elena's stomach dropped. This was it, the end of the fantasy. He'd realized she was too much trouble, too complicated, too ordinary for the life he lived. "Okay," she said. They sat at the table by the window. Margaret had already left for a doctor's appointment, so it was just the two of them and the city stretched out below. "I did something," Adrian said, "and I need you to not be angry about it." That's not a great start to a conversation. "I know, but hear me out." He pulled out a folder. "I had my lawyer look into your mother's medical situation." Elena's blood went cold. "Adrian, the bills, the insurance denials, the treatment she should be getting but can't afford. I saw all of it. You had no right." "I know, and I'm sorry. But Elena, she's not getting the care she needs. The medication alone is none of your business." "It is if I'm making it my business." Elena stood up, anger flooding through her. "You can't just throw money at my problems and expect me to be grateful." "I'm not asking you to be grateful. I'm asking you to let me help." "Why? So I'll owe you? So you can feel good about yourself?" Adrian stood too, his voice rising to match hers. "So your mother doesn't die because you're too proud to accept help." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and terrible. Elena's hands were shaking. "Get out." "Elena, I said get out. Take your folder and your money and your savior complex and leave." "I'm not trying to save you." "Then what are you trying to do?" "I don't know." The admission came out raw. "I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that I can help and I want to help. And the thought of you going back to that restaurant and that apartment and that life where you disappear yourself is killing me." "That's my life. Mine. You don't get to decide it's not good enough." "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" Adrian ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "I'm saying that you matter, Elena. Your health matters. Your mother's health matters. Your art matters. You matter." "To who? To you?" She laughed, bitter. "We met a month ago, Adrian. You don't know me. I know you threw yourself in front of a bullet for my daughter. So that's what this is? Repaying a debt? No, it's..." He stopped, started again. "When Caroline died, I shut down. Completely. I went through the motions of being Rosie's father, but I wasn't really there. And then you happened, and suddenly I'm feeling things again, caring about things again. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm using you to feel human, but I don't think that's all it is." Elena's anger was cracking, revealing the fear underneath. "What else is it then?" "I think I'm falling for you." The admission hit like a physical blow. "You can't..." "I can. I am. Adrian, you're grieving. You're confused. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not confused about this." Elena backed away from him, her good hand pressed to her chest. This isn't real. It can't be. Why not? Because people like you don't fall for people like me. Because this apartment and the painting supplies and the lunches with Rosie, it's all a fantasy. And fantasies end. It doesn't have to. Yes, it does. I have to go back to work. My mom needs care I can't afford. I'm a waitress with a high school education and medical debt and no prospects. What kind of future do you think we have? Adrian crossed the room, stopping just short of touching her. Whatever kind we choose. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works. Your world. Elena laughed, and it came out broken. That's exactly the problem. You have a world. I have a job I hate in a restaurant that's probably going to be torn down. We're not the same. I never said we were. Then what are you saying? I'm saying stay. Don't go back to the restaurant. Don't go back to making yourself small. Stay here, paint, figure out what you want your life to look like. And let you pay for everything? Become your charity case? You're not a charity case. Then what am I? Adrian's jaw clenched. You're the woman I can't stop thinking about. You're Rosie's favorite person. You're someone who deserves better than what you've been settling for. You don't know what I deserve. You're right, I don't. But I know you deserve more than working yourself to death in a job that doesn't value you to pay for medical care that should be covered. I know you deserve to paint without feeling guilty about it. I know you deserve to be seen. Elena's eyes were burning. Stop. Why? Because you're making me want things I can't have. Like what? Like this. She gestured at the apartment, at him, at everything. Like a life where I'm not just surviving, like... She stopped, but he heard what she didn't say. Like you. Adrian stepped closer. Elena. No, don't. She held up her hand. I can't do this. I can't let myself believe in this and then watch it fall apart. I can't. What if it doesn't fall apart? It will. It always does. Not if we don't let it. They stood there inches apart, the air between them charged with everything they weren't saying, everything they wanted and feared in equal measure. Elena's phone rang, shattering the moment. She answered without looking at the screen. Hello? Ms. Brooks. An unfamiliar voice, clinical, professional. This is Chicago General. Your mother was brought in by ambulance about 20 minutes ago. The world tilted. What happened? She collapsed at her doctor's appointment. We're running tests now, but you should come in. I'm on my way. She hung up, looked at Adrian. I have to go. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I'm driving you. And because Elena was too scared to argue, too terrified to be alone, she let him. Adrian's car was the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Sleek, black, the interior all leather and quiet power. Elena sat in the passenger seat with her hands clenched in her lap, watching the city blur past, and tried to remember how to breathe. She's going to be okay, Adrian said. You don't know that. No, but believing the worst doesn't help anyone. Elena didn't respond. She was too busy running through worst-case scenarios in her head. Lung collapse, pneumonia. Worse. She should have been there. Should have gone to the appointment instead of letting her mother go alone. Should have noticed she was getting worse, but she'd been too caught up in painting and Adrian and the fantasy that her life could be anything other than what it was. Adrian pulled up to the emergency room entrance. Go, I'll park and find you. Elena was already out of the car, moving through the automatic doors into the fluorescent hell of the ER waiting room. She gave her mother's name to the woman at the desk, who typed with the speed of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. Room 7. Through those doors, take a left. Elena found her mother on a gurney in a curtained-off space, oxygen mask on her face, looking small and fragile and terrifyingly mortal. Mom. Margaret's eyes opened. She pulled the mask down. I'm fine. They're being dramatic. You collapsed. I got dizzy. It's different. Mom, I'm fine, Elena. Stop looking at me like I'm dying. But the doctor who appeared a moment later didn't share Margaret's optimism. She was young, probably early 30s, with tired eyes and the kind of competence that came from too many night shifts. Miss Brooks, I'm Dr. Reeves. Your mother's oxygen saturation is dangerously low. We're going to admit her for observation and run some more tests, But I need to be honest with you. Her lung function is significantly compromised. How compromised? Without proper treatment and medication, we're looking at continued deterioration, potentially rapid. Elena felt the floor drop out from under her. What kind of treatment? There's a newer medication that's shown promising results for her condition, but it's expensive, and insurance often denies coverage initially. How expensive? Dr. Reeves hesitated. Around $3,000 a month, maybe more depending on dosage. $3,000. Elena made that in 2 months at the restaurant. Maybe. There are programs, Dr. Reeves continued. Patient assistance, payment plans. We have a social worker who can help you navigate options. Options? Like there were real choices when the choice was between your mother's life and bankruptcy. Okay, Elena said numbly. Thank you. After the doctor left, Elena sat in the plastic chair beside her mother's gurney and tried not to fall apart. I can hear you thinking, Margaret said. I'm not thinking anything. You're thinking about money. Someone has to. Not right now, you don't. Right now, you just need to sit with me. So Elena sat, held her mother's hand, watched the monitors beep and the IV drip, and tried to remember when everything had gotten so heavy. Adrian found her 20 minutes later. He took one look at her face and seemed to understand without asking. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Food? Elena shook her head. How's your mom? They're admitting her, running tests. It's bad, Adrian. He pulled up another chair, sat beside her. What did the doctor say? Elena told him. The medication, the cost, the options that weren't really options. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, let me help. No. Elena, I said no. This is exactly what I was talking about. You can't just fix everything with money. I'm not trying to fix everything. I'm trying to help with one specific thing. It's the same. It's not. Margaret's voice came from the gurney, oxygen mask muffling the words. For the love of everything holy, let the man help. Mom, Elena Marie Brooks, I did not raise you to be this stubborn. If Adrian wants to help, let him help. It's charity. It's kindness. There's a difference. I can't pay him back. Did he ask you to? Margaret pulled down the oxygen mask. Adrian, are you asking my daughter to pay you back? No, ma'am. See? Not charity. Just a person helping another person because he can. Elena looked between them. You're ganging up on me. Damn right we are, Margaret said. Now, stop being proud and start being practical. Adrian reached over and took Elena's hand. Let me do this, please. I can't make her better. I can't take away the fear, but I can make sure she gets the treatment she needs. Let me do that one thing. Elena's defenses were crumbling. She was so tired of carrying everything alone, so tired of choosing between impossible options, so tired of watching her mother suffer while she stood by helpless. Okay, she whispered. Adrian's grip tightened on her hand. Okay? Okay, help! He stood immediately, already pulling out his phone. I'll talk to the hospital administration. Make sure they know money isn't an issue. Get her moved to a private room. Adrian, the rooms up there are quieter. Better for recovery. He was already walking away, phone to his ear, leaving Elena alone with her mother and the weight of what she'd just accepted. You love him, Margaret said. What? Don't what me. You love him. I barely know him. You know enough. I've seen how you look at each other. Elena's face burned. It's not like that. Then what's it like? I don't know. Complicated. The best things usually are. Within an hour, Margaret was moved to a private room on the 4th floor. It had a window with actual sunlight, a real chair that converted to a bed, and a TV that wasn't from 1995. Adrian handled everything with the quiet efficiency of someone used to making problems disappear. He spoke to doctors, nurses, administrators, made calls, signed forms. By the time the sun set, Margaret had been examined by 3 specialists and had a treatment plan that Elena couldn't have afforded in 10 lifetimes. Thank you, Elena said when they were alone in the hallway. I can't. You don't have to say anything. Yes, I do. This is your... Adrian took her shoulders gently, careful of her injured side. Your mother is going to get better. That's all that matters. It's not all that matters. You barely know us. You don't owe us this. I'm not doing it because I owe you. I'm doing it because I want to. Why? Because watching you carry this alone is killing me. Because your mother deserves to breathe without pain. Because... He stopped. Started again. Because I care about you, Elena. More than I should, probably. More than is smart. But I do. Elena's eyes stung. I'm scared. Of what? Of this, of you, of wanting something and then losing it. What if you don't lose it? That scares me more. Adrian pulled her close, and Elena let herself lean into him, just for a moment, just long enough to remember what it felt like to not carry everything alone. They stood like that in the hospital hallway while staff moved around them and machines beeped and the world kept spinning. Eventually, Elena pulled back. I should stay with her tonight. I'll bring you some things, clothes, toothbrush, whatever you need. You don't have to... Elena, let me help. So she did, because she was out of fight. Because her mother was sick and Adrian was here, and for once in her life, Elena was going to accept help without apologizing for needing it. Adrian left and came back an hour later with a bag packed by someone who actually knew what women needed. Clean clothes, toiletries, her sketchbook and pencils, snacks that weren't from a vending machine. Rosie wanted me to bring this, he said, pulling out a stuffed unicorn. She said it helps when you're scared. Elena took the unicorn, its rainbow mane soft under her fingers. Tell her thank you. Tell her yourself. She's demanding to visit tomorrow. She doesn't have to. Try telling her that. Elena almost smiled. Almost. Adrian left around 9 after making sure she had everything she needed. Elena curled up in the chair that became a bed, watching her mother sleep, and tried to process the last 12 hours. This morning, she'd been arguing with Adrian about charity and pride and all the reasons this couldn't work. Tonight, he'd saved her mother's life. No. Not saved. Not yet. But given her a chance. Given them both a chance. Elena pulled out her sketchbook. Drew until her hand cramped and her eyes burned. Drew her mother sleeping. Drew the hospital room. Drew the way fear and gratitude could exist in the same breath. She fell asleep with the pencil still in her hand and woke to sunlight and a nurse checking vitals. Your mom's oxygen levels are already improving, the nurse said. The new medication is working fast. Elena wanted to cry with relief. Margaret woke up an hour later, looking better than she had in weeks. I can breathe, she said, wonder in her voice. Elena, I can actually breathe. I know, Mom. When's the last time I could take a full breath without coughing? Elena couldn't remember. It's been a while. This medication is a miracle. It's expensive. And Adrian's paying for it, so stop feeling guilty and start feeling grateful. Elena helped her mother sit up, fluffed her pillows, poured water. The old routines of caretaking, but easier now, lighter. You need to figure out what you want, Margaret said. What? With Adrian, with your life, you can't keep living in limbo. I'm not. You are. You're waiting for permission to be happy, waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to want things. It's not that simple. It never is. But that doesn't mean you get to avoid the question. Rosie arrived at noon with Adrian and a balloon bouquet that was definitely too large for a hospital room. I brought you balloons, she announced. Daddy said you were sick, and balloons make sick people happy. Margaret smiled. They absolutely do. Thank you, sweetheart. Rosie climbed carefully onto the bed, avoiding the IV lines. Elena said brave people can be scared. Are you scared? A little bit, but I'm getting braver. That's good. Being brave is important. Rosie settled against Margaret's side like they'd known each other forever. Elena's the bravest person I know. She got shot, and she didn't even cry. I cried, Elena said. Just later. That still counts as brave. Adrian caught Elena's eye. Mouthed the words, "You okay?" She nodded, and mostly meant it. They spent the afternoon in that hospital room, an unlikely collection of people who were becoming something like family. Rosie colored pictures for Margaret. Adrian made calls in the hallway, but kept coming back to check on everyone. Elena watched them all and felt something in her chest crack open. This This was what she'd been missing. Not money or fancy apartments or expensive medication. Connection, belonging, being part of something bigger than her own survival. Around 3, a woman appeared in the doorway. Mid-40s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of beauty that came from expensive maintenance and good genetics. "Adrian," she said, "we need to talk." Adrian's whole body went rigid. "Vanessa, what are you doing here?" "I heard about Margaret, thought I'd stop by." Her eyes swept the room, landing on Elena with laser precision. "You must be the waitress." The word landed like a slap. "Vanessa," Adrian said, voice sharp. "Not now." "When then?" "You won't return my calls. You've been avoiding me for weeks." "Because we have nothing to discuss." "We have plenty to discuss." Vanessa stepped into the room uninvited. "Like why you're playing house with someone who's clearly taking advantage of your guilt." Elena stood. "Excuse me?" "You threw yourself in front of his daughter. Very heroic, very convenient. And now you're living in his apartment, he's paying your mother's medical bills, and suddenly you're part of his life. That doesn't strike you as opportunistic?" "That's enough," Adrian said. But Vanessa wasn't done. "I'm trying to protect you, Adrian. You're vulnerable right now. She sees that. She's using it. Get out. I'm your friend. I'm trying to help you see." "I said get out." Vanessa's expression hardened. "Fine. But when this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you." She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and thinly veiled threats. The room was silent. Rosie looked confused. "Why was that lady so mean?" "Some people are just mean, Bug," Adrian said. "Don't worry about it." But Elena was worrying about it, because Vanessa had said out loud all the things Elena had been thinking privately. That this was too good to be true. That she didn't belong. That eventually everyone would see her for what she really was, a waitress who'd gotten lucky. "I should go," Elena said. "What? Why?" "I need some air." "Elena." But she was already moving, out of the room, down the hallway, into the stairwell where she could finally breathe. She made it 3 floors down before Adrian caught up to her. "Talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about." "Vanessa is wrong." "Is she?" Elena turned to face him. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like she described. You feel guilty about what happened to me, so you're trying to fix it, and I'm letting you because I'm desperate. That's not what this is. Then what is it? I told you this morning, I care about you." "Why?" "Give me one good reason why someone like you would care about someone like me." "Oh, because you're kind and brave and talented and—" "Stop!" Elena held up her hand. "Those are things you like about me." "That's not the same as caring. You barely know me, Adrian. We met 6 weeks ago because I happened to be in the wrong place at the right time." "It's not about timing. It's about what? Love? You think you love me?" Adrian went very still. "I think I could, if you'd let me." The words hit like a punch to the chest. You don't mean that." "Don't tell me what I mean." "You're grieving. You're confused. I'm a grown man who knows his own mind, and I know that when I'm with you, I feel more alive than I have in 3 years. I know that Rosie lights up when you're around. I know that the thought of you going back to that restaurant and disappearing from our lives makes me physically sick. That's not love, Adrian. That's need. That's loneliness. It's real. Whatever it is, it's real." Elena shook her head. "People like Vanessa are going to keep showing up. They're going to keep questioning my motives, keep implying I'm using you. And eventually you're going to start wondering if they're right." "I won't." "You will. Because they're right about one thing. We don't make sense. A billionaire and a waitress. It's a fairy tale. And fairy tales don't happen to people like me." "Elena, I need space. I need to think. Don't do this. Don't pull away because you're scared." "I'm not scared. I'm being realistic." "You're terrified. I can see it." Elena's composure cracked. "Of course I'm terrified. You're offering me everything I've ever wanted, and I know it's going to get ripped away, so forgive me for trying to protect myself." "From what?" "From you." The words echoed in the stairwell. Adrian stepped back like she'd hit him. "I would never hurt you." "Not on purpose, but you will. Because this doesn't work. We don't work. And the longer I pretend otherwise, the worse it's going to be when reality catches up. So what are you saying? You want to end this before it even starts? I'm saying I need time. I need to figure out my life without, she gestured helplessly, without all of this clouding my judgment. All of this meaning me, meaning the apartment and the money and the feeling like I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. Then why does it feel like I do? Adrian ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. What do you want from me, Elena? You want me to back off? Give you space? Pretend I don't? He stopped. Tell me what you want, and I'll do it. I want my mother to be healthy. I want to not feel like a charity case. Her voice broke. I want to believe this is real. But I can't. Why not? Because people like you don't fall for people like me. Not really. Not in a way that lasts. You keep saying that, people like you, people like me. Like we're different species. Aren't we? No. We're just two people who are terrified of the same thing. What's that? Being happy. Actually happy. And having to trust that it won't get taken away. The words landed too close to the truth. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. I can't do this right now. My mom's in the hospital. I haven't slept. I can't. I need to go back to the room. Adrian nodded slowly. Okay. But Elena, this conversation isn't over. Maybe it should be. It's not. They went back to the room in silence. Margaret took one look at their faces and knew something had shifted. Rosie was oblivious, still coloring, chattering about her day. Adrian stayed another hour, then left with Rosie. He didn't try to talk to Elena again. Didn't push. Just said goodbye to Margaret and walked out. Elena told herself this was for the best, that putting distance between them now would save everyone pain later. She didn't believe it. That night, alone in the hospital room with her mother sleeping, Elena's phone buzzed. Not Adrian. Someone she didn't know. A Chicago area code. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Elena Brooks? A woman's voice, smooth, professional. Yes. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a reporter with the Tribune. I was wondering if you had a few minutes to talk about your relationship with Adrian Cole. Elena's blood went cold. I don't have a relationship with Adrian Cole. That's not what my sources say. You're living in one of his properties. He's paying your mother's medical bills. You've been seen together multiple times. Who told you that? I don't reveal sources, but I'm working on a story about Adrian's personal life, and your name keeps coming up. I wanted to give you a chance to comment before we publish. There's nothing to comment on. We're friends, that's all. Friends who live together and spend every day in each other's company. Friends whose relationship started with a dramatic rescue that's already been covered by every news outlet in the city. I'm not doing this. Don't call me again. Elena hung up, hands shaking. She should have known. Should have realized that someone like Adrian couldn't do anything quietly. That there were people watching, waiting for something to write about. Another text, this time from a number she recognized. Tommy. Saw an interesting article today about you and some billionaire. You planning on telling me you're not coming back to work? Elena stared at the message. The article wasn't even published yet, and already people were talking. This was what Vanessa had been warning about. The scrutiny, the judgment, the assumption that Elena was using Adrian for money and status. And maybe she was. Not consciously, not deliberately. But she was living in his apartment, letting him pay for her mother's care, painting with supplies he'd bought. What did that make her, if not exactly what everyone was saying? Elena looked at her mother, sleeping peacefully for the first time in years, and felt something in her chest shatter. She couldn't do this. Couldn't be the reason Adrian's life got complicated. Couldn't be the waitress turned gold digger story that followed him everywhere. She pulled out her phone and started typing. I think it's better if I move back to my apartment. My mom's getting better. We don't need to take up your space anymore. She stared at the message for a long time before hitting send. Adrian's response came immediately. What happened? Nothing. I just think it's time. Elena, talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. Thank you for everything. Really. But I need to get back to my life. This is because of Vanessa. Or the reporter. Or both. So he knew about the reporter too. It's because this was always temporary, Elena typed. We both knew that. I didn't know that. Then you weren't paying attention. She turned off her phone before he could respond, sat in the dark hospital room and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. It didn't work, but Elena Brooks had spent 10 years making the hard choice, the responsible choice, the choice that kept everyone else safe even if it meant sacrificing herself. This was just one more sacrifice in a long line of them. She'd survive it. She had to. Margaret woke up around midnight, her breathing easier but her eyes sharp. What did you do? Nothing. Go back to sleep. Elena, what did you do? I told Adrian we're moving back to the apartment when you're discharged. Margaret sat up carefully. Why would you do that? Because it's time. Because people are talking. Because you're scared. I'm being practical. You're running away. I'm protecting everyone. From what? Happiness? Elena's hands clenched. From me ruining his life. From Rosie getting attached to someone who doesn't belong in their world. From having to trust that good things can happen to you. It's not that simple. It never is. But that doesn't mean you give up before you even try. I can't try, Mom. Don't you see that? Every news outlet in the city is going to make me into a villain. Every person in his life is going to assume I'm using him, and eventually he's going to believe them. Or he won't. You don't know that. Neither do you, but you're making the decision for him. You're deciding he can't handle the scrutiny, can't defend you, can't choose you over what other people think. That's not fair to him. Life isn't fair. No, but love is. When it's real, it's the fairest thing in the world. Elena shook her head. This isn't love. It's gratitude and guilt and loneliness dressed up as something more. Is that what you really believe? It's what makes sense. Sense, Margaret laughed, bitter. You want to know what makes sense? Dying alone in that apartment while you work yourself to death trying to pay bills that never stop coming. Is that the life you want? It's the life I have. It was. Past tense. Adrian offered you a different life, and you're too scared to take it. I'm not scared. I'm realistic. You're both. And until you can admit that, you're going to keep sabotaging every good thing that comes your way. Elena turned away from her mother, staring out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Adrian was probably still awake, probably trying to figure out how to fix this. But Elena didn't want to be fixed, didn't want to be saved. She wanted to be enough, just as she was, with nothing to prove and no debt to repay. And if that meant walking away from the best thing that had ever happened to her, then that's what she'd do, even if it killed her. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't check it. Let Adrian have the last word. Let him think whatever he needed to think. Tomorrow she'd start looking for a new apartment. Something cheap. Something that didn't come with strings attached. Tomorrow she'd call Tommy and tell him she was coming back to work. Tomorrow she'd go back to being invisible. But tonight, in this hospital room with her mother's disappointed silence filling the space between them, Elena Brooks let herself grieve for the life she'd almost had. The life she'd chosen to give up before it could choose to give her up first. Margaret was discharged 5 days later with a prescription list as long as Elena's arm and breathing that didn't sound like a death rattle for the first time in years. Elena packed their belongings from the hospital room, the stuffed unicorn from Rosie, the drawings, the flowers that had started to wilt, and tried not to think about the fact that Adrian hadn't come by since their fight in the stairwell. He'd texted, multiple times, but Elena had stopped responding after the second day. What was there to say? She'd made her choice. Clean break. Better for everyone. You know you're being an idiot, Margaret said as they waited for the discharge nurse. I'm being smart. Same thing, apparently. A hospital orderly arrived with a wheelchair. Margaret protested. I can walk just fine now. But hospital policy was hospital policy. Elena walked beside her mother as they made their way to the main entrance and tried to ignore the weight in her chest that felt suspiciously like regret. A car was waiting at the curb. Not a taxi, not a rideshare. Adrian's driver, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. Miss Brooks, Mr. Cole asked me to take you wherever you need to go. Elena's jaw tightened. We don't need... Please, the driver said. He'll have my head if I come back without giving you a ride. Just let me do my job. Margaret was already climbing into the back seat. Don't be ridiculous, Elena. Get in the car. So Elena got in the car. She gave the driver the address of their old apartment, and he didn't comment on the neighborhood or the building with its crumbling facade and broken intercom. Just drove them there in silence while Margaret stared out the window. "You're really doing this," her mother said. "Yes. Going back to that place. That life. It's our life, Mom." It was. Past tense. The apartment looked smaller than Elena remembered. Darker. The water stain on the ceiling had spread. The heat still barely worked. Margaret's cough started up again within an hour of being back, even with the new medication. Elena unpacked their few belongings and tried to convince herself this was fine. This was normal. This was where they belonged. It didn't work. That night, she lay in her narrow bed and stared at the ceiling and felt the walls pressing in. Her shoulder ached. She'd been skipping physical therapy, telling herself she'd find a new clinic closer to home. Her phone sat silent on the nightstand. No texts from Adrian, no calls. She'd gotten what she wanted: space, distance, her old life back. It felt like suffocating. The next morning, Elena called Tommy. "It's about time," he said. "You coming back or not?" "I'm coming back. When do you need me?" "Tomorrow. Breakfast shift, 6 a.m. "I'll be there." She hung up and stared at her uniform hanging in the closet. Black pants that were shiny at the knees, white shirt with a faint grease stain that never quite came out. This was her life. This was reality. The penthouse and the art supplies and the grilled cheese sandwiches with a billionaire and his daughter. That had been a dream. A beautiful, impossible dream. Time to wake up. Elena showed up to Rosie's restaurant at 5:45 the next morning. The familiar smell of old grease and burnt coffee hit her like a wall. Tommy was in the back prepping for the day, and he looked up when she walked in. "Brooks, you look like hell." "Thanks, Tommy. Really feeling the love." "I'm serious. You sick?" "I'm fine." "Your shoulder is healed enough to carry plates." "I'm here, aren't I?" Tommy studied her for a long moment. "Whatever. Table assignments are on the board. We got a new girl covering your section while you were out, but she quit last week, so it's yours again." Elena tied on her apron and fell back into the rhythm like she'd never left. Refill coffee, take orders, smile at customers who didn't see her, clean tables, repeat. It should have felt normal, comfortable even. Instead, it felt like wearing someone else's skin. The morning rush came and went. Elena's shoulders started aching around 9, a deep throb that the pain pills barely touched. She'd been cleared for light duty, but carrying trays and reaching for high shelves apparently didn't qualify as light. "You need a break?" Tommy asked during a lull. "I'm fine." "You're wincing every time you lift your arm." "I said I'm fine." Tommy shrugged. "Your funeral." Around 11, a woman walked in who made Elena's stomach drop. Mid-40s, perfectly styled with a recording device that she didn't bother to hide. Jennifer Walsh, the reporter. She slid into a booth in Elena's section and smiled like they were old friends. "Elena Brooks. I was hoping to catch you here." "I'm working. Order something or leave." "I'll have coffee. Black." Jennifer pulled out a notepad. "I wanted to give you a chance to tell your side of the story before we publish." "There is no story." "Really?" "Because I have sources saying you've been living with Adrian Cole, that he's been paying for your mother's medical care, that there's a romantic relationship developing." "Your sources are wrong." "Are they?" "Because I also have photos of you and Mr. Cole together, multiple occasions. You leaving his building, him visiting you at the hospital." Elena's hands shook as she poured coffee. "We're friends, that's all." "Friends who live together?" "I was recovering from a gunshot wound. He offered me a place to stay. I've since moved out." "Interesting timing, right after his ex-fiancée made some pointed comments about your relationship." Elena set down the coffee pot harder than intended. "I don't have a relationship with Adrian Cole. I don't have anything to say to you, and if you print anything implying otherwise, it's a lie." "So you're denying any romantic involvement?" "I'm denying that my personal life is any of your business." Jennifer smiled. "I'll take that as a yes, then. Thank you for your time, Ms. Brooks." She left a $5 bill on the table and walked out. Elena stood there, coffee pot still in hand, and felt her carefully constructed walls start to crumble. This was why she'd left. This was why she'd pushed Adrian away. Because people like Jennifer Walsh didn't care about the truth. They cared about the story. And the story of a waitress using a billionaire's guilt to climb the social ladder was too good to pass up. Tommy appeared at her elbow. That the reporter who's been calling here? You didn't tell me reporters were calling. Figured you had enough to deal with. She leave you alone? For now. You want me to ban her? Elena shook her head. It won't matter. If it's not her, it'll be someone else. This about that Cole guy? It's about nothing. Can we just drop it? Tommy raised his hands in surrender. Your life, Brooks. The rest of the shift crawled by. Every time the door opened, Elena tensed, waiting for another reporter. Another question. Another reminder that she didn't belong in Adrian's world. She got home around 6, exhausted and aching. Margaret was on the couch, breathing easier but looking concerned. How was work? Fine. Elena, I don't want to talk about it. A reporter stopped by here today, asking about you and Adrian. Elena's stomach dropped. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're an idiot who's running away from the best thing that ever happened to her. Mom, I also told her to get off my property before I called the police. But the first part stands. Elena sank onto the couch beside her mother. They're going to print something. No matter what I say or don't say, they're going to make me look like I was using him. And I can't do that to him. To Rosie. They don't deserve that kind of scrutiny. What about what you deserve? I deserve what I've always had. This. Elena gestured at the apartment. This is real. The penthouse, the art supplies, the family dinners, that was pretend. Was it? Because it looked pretty real to me. It doesn't matter what it looked like. It's over. Margaret was quiet for a moment. You know what I remember about your father? Mom, don't. He was terrified of flying. Absolutely terrified. But when his mother got sick in Florida, he got on a plane anyway. You know what he told me when he got back? Elena shook her head. He said being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about deciding something matters more than the fear. Margaret took Elena's hand. Adrian matters more than your fear. You know it. I know it. The question is whether you're going to be brave enough to admit it. It's not about being brave. It's about being realistic. It's about being terrified that if you reach for something good, it'll get taken away. Like your dad was taken away. Like my health was taken away. Like every dream you ever had got taken away. Margaret's grip tightened. But baby, you can't live your whole life braced for loss. Eventually you have to take the risk. Elena pulled away. I can't. I can't be the reason his life gets complicated. His life is already complicated. You didn't make it that way. But I'm not making it better. How do you know? Have you asked him? Elena didn't answer. Couldn't. Because asking meant opening herself up to hope. And hope was dangerous. The article came out 2 days later. Elena saw it while scrolling through her phone during a break at work. The headline made her stomach turn. Billionaire's new romance, charity case or calculated move. There were photos. Elena leaving the hospital, Adrian's hand on her back, the two of them in his car, Rosie holding Elena's hand. The article itself was worse. It painted Elena as an opportunist who'd orchestrated the whole thing, suggested she'd thrown herself in front of the bullet knowing it would pay off, quoted sources close to Adrian Cole saying he was known for his charitable nature and might be confusing gratitude with something deeper. Vanessa. It had to be. The article mentioned Elena's background, the struggling waitress, the sick mother, the medical debt, made it sound calculated, manipulative, made it sound like exactly what Elena had been afraid of. Tommy found her in the break room, staring at her phone with tears streaming down her face. Brooks, you okay? I'm fine. That article's a hit piece. Everyone knows those things are garbage. Do they? Because it's already been shared 2,000 times. Tommy sat down beside her. For what it's worth, I don't think you're using anybody. You called me a gold digger last week. Yeah, well, I was being an ass. Point is, anyone who knows you knows you're not that person. But nobody knows me, Tommy. That's the whole point. I'm just the waitress who got shot. That's all anyone sees. Then maybe it's time to be more than that. Elena looked at him. What? You hate this job. You've always hated it. You're only here because you think you don't have options. But you do now. Guy like Cole, he could... I'm not using Adrian for his money. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying maybe he's offering you a chance to figure out what you actually want. And instead of taking it, you're hiding here because it's familiar. I'm not hiding. You're absolutely hiding. You've been hiding since the day you started here. The words hit harder than they should have. Elena stood up. My break's over. Brooks, I need to get back to work. She finished her shift in a haze, smiled at customers, poured coffee, pretended the article didn't exist, but when she got home, Margaret was waiting with her phone in hand. Have you seen this? Yes. And? And nothing. It's exactly what I knew would happen. Adrian released a statement. Elena's heart jumped. What? Margaret pulled up the article on her phone, a short statement from Adrian's publicist issued that afternoon. Ms. Brooks is a remarkably brave woman who saved my daughter's life. Any suggestion that she's acted inappropriately or with ulterior motives is both false and deeply insulting. I value her friendship and will not tolerate attacks on her character. Friendship. He'd called it friendship. Elena should have felt relieved. He was backing off, giving her space, respecting her wishes. Instead, she felt like she'd been punched. He's protecting you, Margaret said. He's covering his ass, making sure everyone knows we're just friends so the story goes away. Or he's doing what you asked, giving you distance. I didn't ask for a public statement. No, you just pushed him away and then got upset when he actually left. Elena threw her purse on the couch. What do you want from me, Mom? You want me to call him, apologize for not wanting to ruin his life? I want you to stop being such a coward. The word landed like a slap. Excuse me? You heard me. You threw yourself in front of a bullet for a child you didn't know. But you won't take a risk on your own happiness because someone might write a mean article. You're being a coward. I'm being smart. You're being scared. There's a difference. Elena's hands clenched. You don't understand. Don't I? I'm watching my daughter give up on the best thing that's ever happened to her because she's convinced she doesn't deserve it. Trust me. I understand. It's not about deserving it. It's exactly about that. You've spent 10 years punishing yourself for having dreams. For wanting things, for being more than just the daughter who stayed behind to play caretaker. That's not fair. Isn't it? Margaret stood, moving slowly but with purpose. I never asked you to give up art school. I never asked you to work yourself to death at that restaurant. You made those choices because you thought that's what love looked like. Sacrifice, self-denial, making yourself small so other people would be comfortable. I was taking care of you. You were hiding. Using me as an excuse to not take risks. And now you've got another excuse. Bad publicity, mean reporters, tabloid speculation. But they're just excuses, Elena. The real reason you're running is because you're terrified that if you let yourself be happy, it'll get taken away. Elena's vision blurred. It will. Everything good gets taken away. Not always. Dad died. You got sick. I had to give up everything I wanted. Why would this be any different? Because it is. Because Adrian isn't your dad. He's not going to die in the middle of the night and leave you alone. And I'm not dying anymore thanks to him. So what's your excuse now? Elena didn't have one. Just fear, raw and overwhelming. Margaret softened. Baby, I know you're scared. I know loss has taught you to protect yourself. But at some point, you have to decide if you want to survive or if you want to live. Because what you're doing right now, this isn't living. I don't know how to do anything else. Yes, you do. You did it when you were painting, when you were making grilled cheese with Rosie, when you were letting yourself be happy for 5 seconds before fear kicked back in. Elena sank onto the couch. What if I try and it doesn't work? Then you'll survive, like you always do. But at least you'll know you tried. What if I try and it does work? Margaret smiled. Then you'll finally understand what you've been missing. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the article, about Adrian's statement, about the word friendship and how much it had stung. Around 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and pulled out her sketchbook, started drawing without thinking. She drew Adrian the way he'd looked in the hospital, exhausted but present. She drew Rosie making grilled cheese, her face scrunched in concentration. She drew the penthouse apartment with its wall of windows and impossible light. She drew the life she'd walked away from. And somewhere around 4 in the morning, Sitting in her cramped apartment with her mother's rattling breath in the next room, Elena admitted the truth to herself. She'd made a mistake. She'd been so focused on protecting herself from potential pain that she'd guaranteed it, so worried about what could go wrong that she'd destroyed what was going right. She'd been a coward. The realization should have felt devastating. Instead, it felt like breathing after holding her breath for too long. Elena picked up her phone, stared at Adrian's contact. Her thumb hovered over his name. What would she even say? Sorry I panicked? Sorry I believed the worst about myself? Sorry I chose fear over you? Before she could talk herself out of it, she started typing. I made a mistake. She stared at the message, deleted it, tried again. I'm sorry, delete. Can we talk? Her finger hovered over send. She didn't press it. Because what if he'd moved on? What if the statement about friendship was real? What if she'd burned the bridge too badly to rebuild it? Elena set down her phone and buried her face in her hands. This was impossible. She couldn't do this. A knock on the door made her jump. She checked the time. 4:37 a.m. Who the hell knocked at 4:37 in the morning? Elena opened the door and found Rosie standing in the hallway, still in her pajamas, holding her father's hand. Hi, Elena, Rosie said, like showing up before dawn was perfectly normal. I came to talk to you. Elena's heart stopped. Rosie? Adrian? What are you? Can we come in? Adrian asked quietly. Elena stepped aside, too shocked to argue. Rosie marched into the tiny apartment and climbed onto the couch with the confidence of someone who'd made a decision and wasn't backing down. I need to tell you something important, she announced. Okay. Elena sat down beside her, aware of Adrian standing in the doorway, looking exhausted and uncertain. Rosie took a deep breath. Daddy said you went away because you were scared. Is that true? Elena glanced at Adrian. He shrugged slightly, as if to say, your call. Yes, Elena said. I was scared. Of what? Of a lot of things. Of making mistakes. Of people being mean. Of... She stopped. How did you explain adult fears to a 4-year-old? Of us? Rosie asked quietly. No, never of you. Then why did you leave? Elena's throat tightened. Because I thought it would be easier. For everyone. Was it? No. Good. Because it wasn't easier for us either. Daddy's been really sad. And I missed you a lot. I missed you too, sweetheart. Rosie reached over and took Elena's hand with the seriousness of someone about to deliver important news. Remember what you told me in the hospital? About brave people? That brave people can be scared? Yeah, but also that they do the thing anyway, even when it's scary. Rosie squeezed her hand. You saved me from a bullet. That was really scary, but you did it anyway. That was different. No, it's not. You're just scared of different things now. Rosie's expression was far too wise for a 4-year-old. And I think one of those things is loving people. Because what if they go away like Mommy went away? Elena's eyes stung. Rosie. But here's the thing. Rosie climbed into Elena's lap, careful of her shoulder. Heroes don't save people they don't love. That's what Daddy said. And you saved me, so that means you love me. Of course I love you. And I love you, and Daddy loves you. So the question is, are you going to be brave about that too? Elena looked over Rosie's head at Adrian, who was watching them with an expression that made her chest ache. Did you rehearse this speech? Elena asked through her tears. All the way here, Adrian said. She insisted on coming, said she was the only one who could get through to you. She was right, Rosie beamed. I'm very smart. You are. So are you coming back? Elena looked around the tiny apartment. At the water-stained ceiling and the broken heat and the life she'd been trying to convince herself was enough. Then she looked at Rosie's hopeful face, at Adrian standing in the doorway like he was afraid to hope, at the future they were offering her if she was brave enough to take it. Yes, she whispered, I'm coming back. Rosie threw her arms around Elena's neck. I knew you would. Daddy said maybe you wouldn't, but I knew. Adrian finally moved from the doorway, kneeling in front of them. Elena, I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I was scared and stupid and I hurt you and... Stop. He took her face in his hands. I'm not angry. I was never angry. You should be. Maybe. But I'm not. I'm just... His voice cracked. I'm just glad you're here. I said terrible things. You said scared things. There's a difference. Adrian, can I say something before you apologize yourself into oblivion? Elena nodded. I love you. I've been in love with you since you woke up in that hospital, and your first words were asking if Rosie was okay. And I know it's too fast, and I know you're scared, and I know there are going to be more articles and more people like Vanessa who question this. But I don't care, because the only opinion that matters is yours. And if you need time, I'll give you time. If you need space, I'll give you space. But if you're running because you think I deserve better, then I need you to understand something. He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. There is no better. There's just you, exactly as you are. And that's more than I ever thought I'd have again. Elena was crying fully now, unable to stop. I don't know how to do this, how to be loved, how to trust it. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. What if I mess it up? Then we'll fix it together. What if... Elena. He kissed her forehead. Stop looking for reasons it won't work and just let it work. Rosie, still in Elena's lap, made a disgusted noise. Are you going to kiss? Because if you're going to kiss, I should probably close my eyes. Adrian laughed, the sound breaking through the tension. Maybe later, Bug. Promise? Promise. Elena pulled them both close, this unlikely family that had found each other in the middle of chaos and decided to hold on. Margaret appeared in her bedroom doorway, wrapped in a robe, breathing easier than she had in years. About damn time, she said. They moved back to the penthouse that morning, before the sun was fully up, with Rosie giving directions like a tiny general and Margaret shaking her head at all of them. This is insane, Margaret said as Adrian's driver loaded their belongings into the car. It's 5 a.m. Rosie insisted, Adrian said. I did, Rosie confirmed from the back seat. Because Elena belongs with us and waiting is boring. Elena climbed in beside her, still feeling like she was in a dream. A few hours ago, she'd been alone in the dark, convinced she'd ruined everything. Now she was sitting next to a 4-year-old who'd shown up at her door before dawn to tell her about love and bravery. You really rehearsed that speech? Elena asked. Daddy helped, but the important words were mine. Adrian caught Elena's eye in the rearview mirror. She wouldn't go to sleep until we had a plan. It was a good plan, Rosie said proudly. It was a perfect plan. When they reached the penthouse, the morning light was just starting to pour through those massive windows. Elena stood in the doorway and felt something in her chest loosen. This was home. Not because of the expensive furniture or the view or the space, but because Adrian and Rosie were here, and Margaret was already heading to her room to lie down. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena felt like she belonged somewhere. I need to tell you something, Adrian said once Rosie had run off to find the stuffed unicorn she'd left in her previous visit. Elena turned to face him. Okay. The restaurant, Rosie's, the one where we met. He paused. I was planning to demolish it, part of a development deal I'd been working on for 2 years. Elena's stomach dropped. What? That day we came in, I was doing a final walkthrough, evaluating the property. The whole block, actually. I had plans to tear it all down and build luxury condos. Had? I canceled the deal the day you got shot, called my lawyers from the hospital and told them to kill the whole project. Elena sank onto the couch. Why? Because you almost died in that building, because tearing it down felt like erasing what happened there, and because... He sat beside her. Because keeping it seemed more important than another luxury development Chicago doesn't need. Adrian, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I'm just telling you so you know. There are no secrets between us. Not anymore. Elena processed this. The restaurant where she'd worked for 6 years, where she'd met Adrian and Rosie, where a gunman had changed all of their lives, it had nearly been demolished, and Adrian had stopped it. What happens to it now? She asked. I bought the building. Haven't decided what to do with it yet. Tommy still has his lease, but eventually, he shrugged. I don't know. I figured we'd figure it out together. If you want. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. I want. They sat like that for a while, watching the city wake up below them. Rosie reappeared with the unicorn and climbed between them, and the three of them stayed there as the morning light turned gold. Eventually, Margaret emerged from her room, breathing easier, looking more rested than Elena had seen her in months. "Someone needs to make breakfast," she announced, "and since I'm the invalid, it's not going to be me." "You're not an invalid, Mom." "Then I'm the guest. Either way, someone else is cooking." Adrian stood. "How do you feel about pancakes?" "I feel very positively about pancakes." They made breakfast together, all of them crowding into the kitchen. Adrian handled the griddle while Rosie mixed ingredients with the seriousness of a chemist. Margaret sat at the counter and critiqued their technique. Elena just watched, committing every detail to memory. This was what happiness looked like, messy and loud and imperfect. "You're staring," Adrian said quietly. "I'm memorizing." "Memorizing what?" "This. All of it. In case I wake up and it's gone." He kissed her temple. "It's not going anywhere. Neither are you." After breakfast, after Rosie had been dropped off at preschool with promises that Elena would pick her up later, Adrian and Elena sat down to have the conversation they'd been avoiding. "We need to talk about what happens next," he said. "I know. The article was just the first. There are going to be more. Questions, speculation, people like Vanessa who think they know what's best for me." Elena's hands clenched. "I can handle it." "Can you?" "Because I need to know. If you're going to bolt every time someone writes something cruel—" "I won't, I promise." "How can you be sure?" "Because I almost lost you once. I'm not making that mistake again." Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand. "I need you to understand something. My life is complicated. The business, the scrutiny, the expectations. People are going to judge you. They're going to make assumptions. And I can't protect you from all of it. I'm not asking you to protect me. I'm asking you to stand beside me while I handle it myself." "I can do that. And I need you to understand something too." Elena squeezed his hand. "I'm not going to fit into your world perfectly. I'm going to make mistakes, say the wrong thing, wear the wrong dress, not know the right people. I don't care about any of that. Your board of directors might. Then they can deal with it. You're not changing who you are for anyone, not even for me." Elena felt her eyes sting. "What did I do to deserve you?" "You threw yourself in front of a bullet for my daughter. I think that covers it." "That's not—" "Elena." He pulled her close. "Stop looking for reasons you're not enough. You're everything." The next few weeks were an adjustment. Elena moved her belongings from the apartment, what little there was, into the penthouse. She started physical therapy again, this time at a clinic that didn't make her wince every time she walked in. Margaret's health continued to improve, her breathing easier, her energy returning, and Elena painted. Every morning, after dropping Rosie at preschool, she'd come back to the penthouse and lose herself in front of the easel. The portraits came first: Adrian and Rosie, Margaret, the hospital room where everything had changed, Rosie's restaurant with its cracked vinyl and impossible light. Then she started branching out. Landscapes, abstract pieces that captured feeling more than form, work that surprised her with its rawness. "You're getting good at this," Margaret said one afternoon, watching Elena work. "I'm getting back to where I was. There's a difference." "No, you're better now. You've got something to say." Elena stepped back from the canvas, considering. "Maybe. Definitely. You should show these to someone." "Who?" "I don't know. A gallery, an agent, someone who knows art." "I'm not ready for that." "When will you be ready?" Elena didn't have an answer, but the question stuck with her. When would she be ready? When would she stop seeing herself as the waitress playing artist and start believing she was actually an artist? Adrian noticed her restlessness. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "That's not true." They were in bed, late at night, with Rosie asleep in her room down the hall, and the city lights painting shadows on the ceiling. Elena turned to face him. "What if I'm not good enough?" "At what?" "Any of it. Painting. Being a mother to Rosie. Being whatever this is between us." "A relationship. It's called a relationship." "I know what it's called. I just don't know if I'm—" She stopped, frustrated. "I keep waiting for you to realize you made a mistake." "I'm not going to realize that." "How do you know?" Because I'm looking at you right now, and all I can think is how lucky I am that you chose me back. I didn't choose you. You showed up at my door at 4 in the morning with your daughter. After you texted me, well, almost texted me, I saw it in your drafts when you fell asleep with your phone in your hand. Elena's face burned. You looked at my drafts? Your screen was still on. I wasn't snooping. I was turning off your phone so it wouldn't die. What did it say? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can we talk? 3 separate drafts, all unsent. I couldn't figure out what to say. So I said it for you, showed up and gave you a chance to say it in person. Elena buried her face in his chest. I'm still scared. Of what? Of this being temporary, of losing you, of... Elena, look at me. She did. I'm not going anywhere. Rosie's not going anywhere. Your mom is getting better. Your art is incredible. Everything you've been afraid of losing, it's not going anywhere unless you push it away. So stop waiting for disaster and just be here. With me. With us. It's that simple? It's that simple. It wasn't, of course. Nothing ever was. The second article came out a week later. This one worse than the first. It included photos of Elena's old apartment building, interviews with former co-workers, speculation about her motives. Gold digger or guardian angel? The Elena Brooks story, read the headline. Elena read it sitting at the kitchen counter while Adrian was in his study on a conference call. Every word felt like a knife. Margaret found her there, phone in hand, tears streaming down her face. Another article? It's so mean, Mom. They talked to people from the restaurant, said I was always looking for a way out, that I saw Adrian as my ticket. Those people don't know you. But everyone's going to believe them. Not everyone. Enough people. Elena set down her phone. I can't do this. Yes, you can. How? How am I supposed to go to events with him, meet his friends, be part of his life, when everyone thinks I'm just using him? By not caring what they think. I do care. Then stop. Elena laughed bitterly. That's your advice? Just stop caring? Yes. Because their opinion doesn't matter. Adrian's does, Rosie's does, mine does. Everyone else is just noise. Loud noise. Still just noise. Adrian appeared in the doorway, his expression dark. I saw the article. Adrian, I'm suing them for defamation. You can't sue every publication that writes something mean. Watch me. That'll just make it worse. Make me look like I'm hiding behind you. So what do you want to do? Elena thought about it, really thought about it. What did she want? I want to tell my own story, she said finally. What do you mean? They're writing about me like I'm some character they invented. Maybe it's time I actually spoke up, told people who I really am. You don't owe anyone an explanation. I know, but I want to give one anyway. Adrian studied her. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The interview was set up through Adrian's publicist, a magazine known for thoughtful profiles, a journalist who actually listened instead of just looking for sound bites. Elena sat across from her in a coffee shop, hands shaking slightly, and told her story. Not the version the tabloids wanted, the real version. She talked about giving up art school to care for her mother, about 6 years slinging coffee at Rosie's, about the moment she saw the gun and made a choice without thinking. She talked about Adrian and Rosie and falling in love despite being terrified, about learning to accept help after years of refusing it, about painting again and rediscovering the person she'd buried under survival. Some people are going to read this and still think I'm a gold digger, Elena said. Some people are determined to believe the worst. Do you care? The journalist asked. I care less than I used to. I know who I am. The people who matter know who I am. Everyone else, she shrugged. Everyone else can think whatever they want. The article came out 3 weeks later. It was honest and unflinching and entirely Elena's voice. The response was mixed. Some people praised her honesty. Some still thought she was playing a long game, but enough people believed her that the narrative started to shift. Elena Brooks, a love story built on courage, read one headline. It wasn't perfect. There were still skeptics. Still people like Vanessa who whispered at events and gave Elena looks that could cut glass. But Elena learned to hold her head up anyway. She learned to walk into a room full of billionaires and philanthropists and art collectors and not apologize for being there. Learn to smile at the whispers and let Adrian's hand on her back remind her she belonged. It wasn't easy, but it got easier. Adrian kept his promise. He stepped back from the relentless pace of his business empire, delegated more, said no to deals that would take him away from home for weeks at a time. My father built this company by sacrificing everything else, he told Elena one night. His marriage, his health, his relationship with me. I'm not doing that. Your board must love that. My board works for me, not the other way around. If they don't like my priorities, they can find another CEO. You'd really walk away? For you and Rosie? In a heartbeat. Elena started showing her work. First at a small gallery that a friend of Adrian's owned, then at a larger space downtown. The response surprised her. You have a real eye, one collector told her. Raw talent. I'd like to commission a piece. I'm not sure I'm ready for commissions. Then get ready, because this is good, really good. Elena started taking it seriously. Set up a studio in one of the penthouse bedrooms. Worked with a gallerist who believed in her work. Sold 3 paintings in the first month. It wasn't enough to live on. Not yet. But it was something. It was hers. I'm proud of you, Adrian said, standing in her studio and looking at her latest piece. A portrait of Rosie that had taken 2 weeks to complete. For what? For not giving up, for fighting for this, for yourself. I almost did give up. But you didn't. That's what matters. Rosie became the bright center of their unconventional family. She started kindergarten and came home every day with stories and artwork and demands that Elena help her paint. I want to be an artist like you, she announced one afternoon. You can be anything you want, sweetheart. I want to be an artist and a doctor and a princess. Good goals. Elena picked her up from school most days, went to parent-teacher conferences, sat through school plays where Rosie played a tree with uncommon enthusiasm. She wasn't Rosie's mother. They'd been careful about that, both of them aware of Caroline's memory. But she was something important. Can I call you Mom? Rosie asked one night during bedtime. Elena's heart stopped. What? I have a mommy. She's in heaven, but you're my mom, the one who's here. Is that okay? Elena looked at Adrian, who was standing in the doorway. He nodded slightly. If that's what you want, Elena said carefully, but we should talk about it, about your mommy and what she'd want. I think she'd want me to be happy, and you make me happy, so I think she'd like you. I hope so. I know so. Because you're brave and kind and you saved my life. Mommies like people who save their babies. Elena pulled her close, breathing in the smell of children's shampoo and marker ink. I love you, Rosie. I love you too, Mom. Adrian found Elena in the hallway afterwards, crying quietly. You okay? She called me Mom. I heard. Is it wrong? Am I replacing? No, you're not replacing anyone. Caroline will always be her mother. But you're here, you're present, you're showing up every day. That's what matters. I don't want to dishonor her memory. You're not. You're honoring her daughter by loving her. That's all Caroline would have wanted. 6 months after Elena moved back to the penthouse, Adrian took her back to Rosie's restaurant. The building looked different, renovated. The cracked vinyl was gone, replaced by comfortable booths. The flickering lights had been fixed. The whole place gleamed. What did you do? Elena asked. Gave Tommy money to fix the place up. He's doing better business now, actually making a profit. Adrian, it's still his restaurant. I'm just the landlord. But I figured if this place was going to stay standing, it should look decent. They sat in the booth where they'd first met, where Rosie had eaten chocolate cake with a Brave Day candle, where everything had started. I've been thinking, Adrian said. About what? About us. About the future. About... He pulled out a small box. Elena's breath caught. Adrian. Wait, let me say this. He opened the box, revealing a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious. Classic, elegant, perfect. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together 6 months, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Adrian, I love you, Elena Brooks. I love your courage and your art and the way you make my daughter light up. I love that you push back when I'm being an idiot. I love that you saved Rosie's life and then saved mine by showing me what living actually means. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it." Elena was crying, unable to speak. "So I'm asking you, in this restaurant where we met, where you almost died, where everything changed, will you marry me?" She wanted to say yes immediately, but something stopped her. "Can I ask you something first?" Adrian's expression flickered. "Of course." "Are you asking because you love me, or because you think you owe me?" "I'm asking because I can't imagine my life without you in it." "That's not an answer." "Yes, it is." He took her hand. "I loved you before I knew your name. When you were lying on that floor asking if Rosie was okay. When you woke up in the hospital worried about bills instead of your injuries. When you painted that portrait of my daughter and captured her so perfectly, I cried. Every day since then, I've loved you more. Not because I owe you, because you're you. I'm going to mess up, make mistakes, embarrass you at fancy events. I'm counting on it. I'm serious. So am I. I don't want perfect, Elena. I want you, exactly as you are. Messy and scared and brave and beautiful. Will you marry me? Elena looked at the ring, at Adrian, at the restaurant around them that had been the site of so much pain and possibility. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Like everything else between them, imperfect and unexpected and absolutely right. They told Rosie that night. She screamed so loud the neighbors probably heard her 3 floors down. You're getting married! Does that mean you're staying forever? Forever, Elena confirmed. Good. Because I already made you a drawing for your wedding, and it would be weird if you weren't there. They told Margaret over dinner. She cried and hugged them both and said she'd known from the beginning. The beginning? Elena asked. When? When I woke up in that hospital room and saw Adrian sitting beside your bed like he'd been there for days, which he had. That's when I knew. The engagement made news, of course. More articles. More speculation. Some congratulatory, some skeptical. Vanessa sent a text that Adrian deleted without reading. Don't you want to know what it says? Elena asked. No, I know what it says. Some variation of this is a mistake, but it's not. You're not. So I don't care what she thinks. The wedding planning started. Elena wanted something small and simple. Adrian would have given her anything. They compromised on something in between. A ceremony in the penthouse with the city spreading out behind them. Close friends and family. Rosie is the flower girl, already planning her dress down to the smallest detail. Can I pick the flowers too? She asked. Absolutely. And the cake? Within reason. What's reason? Nothing too crazy. Rosie's version of not too crazy involved a cake shaped like a unicorn. They went with it. Elena's art started selling consistently. A gallery in New York expressed interest in a show. She was terrified and excited in equal measure. You should do it, Adrian said. It's too soon. It's the right time. What if I fail? What if you succeed? Elena thought about that, about success and failure and which one scared her more. She agreed to the show. The paintings sold. Not all of them, but enough. Enough that the gallery wanted to represent her long term. Enough that people who knew art started using her name. You're Elena Brooks, someone said at an event. The artist. Not the waitress. Not the woman who'd saved the billionaire's daughter. The artist. Elena smiled. Yes, I am. The wedding was on a Saturday in May, 6 months after Adrian proposed. The penthouse was filled with flowers, Rosie's choices, which meant a lot of pink and purple and some combinations that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Elena stood in front of the mirror in a dress that was simple and elegant and made her feel like herself. Margaret helped with the veil, her hands steady, her breathing clear. You look beautiful, baby. I'm terrified. That's normal. What if I trip walking down the aisle? Then Adrian will catch you. That's what he does. Elena turned to face her mother. Thank you. For what? For not dying, for getting better, for being here. Margaret's eyes filled. Thank you for letting yourself be happy. Finally. The ceremony was short and sweet. Rosie took her flower girl duties very seriously, making sure every petal was perfectly placed. Adrian stood at the makeshift altar, and didn't take his eyes off Elena the entire time. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Rosie shouted, "No!" before anyone else could speak. Everyone laughed. Adrian's vows were simple. "I promise to love you, to stand beside you, to catch you when you fall and cheer you on when you fly. I promise to make terrible jokes and grilled cheese sandwiches and to never, ever take you for granted. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives." Elena's turn. She'd written hers the night before, sitting in bed with Adrian asleep beside her, trying to capture everything she felt. "I promise to be brave, to stop running when things get scary, to let you love me even when I don't think I deserve it. I promise to paint our story in every color I can find and to teach Rosie that bravery means showing up even when you're terrified. I promise to choose you back, every day, for the rest of our lives." They kissed and Rosie cheered and Margaret cried and Elena thought about the path that had brought her here. From a cramped apartment to a hospital bed to a penthouse with windows that showed her the whole city. From invisible waitress to woman worth seeing. From surviving to living. The reception was casual. Dancing in the living room, toasts that were funny and touching. Tommy showed up in a suit that looked like he'd borrowed it from someone shorter, bringing greetings from the restaurant staff. "You done good, Brooks," he said. "Thanks, Tommy. Still can't believe you married a billionaire." "Neither can I sometimes. But he's good to you. The best." "Then I'm happy for you, really." As the night wound down, Elena found herself on the balcony, looking out at the city. Adrian joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You okay?" "Better than okay." "No regrets?" "Only that I almost let fear win." "But you didn't." "But I didn't," she agreed. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker below them. Somewhere in that city was the restaurant where they'd met, the hospital where Elena had woken up to a new life, the apartment where she'd almost given up. All of it had led here, to this moment, to this man, to this family they'd chosen together. "Hey," Adrian said softly. "Yeah? Thank you." "For what?" "For throwing yourself in front of that bullet, for saving Rosie, for giving me a reason to feel alive again, for choosing us. Thank you for showing up at my door at 4 a.m. with your daughter and refusing to let me give up. Anytime." Rosie appeared in the doorway, still in her flower girl dress, rubbing her eyes. "Are you coming back inside? Everyone's leaving and I want to say goodbye." They went back inside together, said goodbye to guests, tucked Rosie into bed with promises that they weren't going anywhere, that this was real, that she was safe. Later, much later, when the apartment was quiet and the city had settled into its late-night rhythm, Elena and Adrian lay in bed and talked about the future. About the art show in New York. About Rosie starting first grade in the fall. About maybe adopting a dog. About all the ordinary, extraordinary moments that made up a life. "I still can't believe this is real sometimes," Elena admitted. "It's real, I promise." "How do you know?" "Because I'm looking at you right now, and I still can't believe you're mine." "I'm not yours. I'm my own." "Fair point. Let me rephrase. I can't believe you chose me. Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Adrian corrected. "First was throwing yourself in front of that bullet. That wasn't a decision. That was instinct." "Same thing, when it matters." Elena rolled over to face him. "I love you, Adrian Cole." "I love you too, Elena Cole." The name still sounded strange, new, but also right. Elena Brooks had spent 30 years being invisible, making herself small, apologizing for taking up space. Elena Cole was learning to be seen, to take up room, to believe she deserved the happiness she'd fought so hard to accept. It wasn't always easy. There were still days when the fear crept back in, days when she caught herself waiting for disaster, days when imposter syndrome whispered that she didn't belong in this life. But those days were getting fewer, and when they came, she had Adrian and Rosie and Margaret to remind her of the truth. She belonged exactly where she was. 6 weeks after the wedding, Elena stood in a New York gallery watching people study her paintings, her work, her vision, her truth translated into color and light and emotion. A woman approached, clearly wealthy, clearly influential. These are remarkable. The emotion, the rawness. It's unlike anything I've seen in years. Thank you, Elena said. You're self-taught? I had a year of art school. Then life got complicated. Well, whatever your path was, it worked. I'm buying 3, maybe 4, I can't decide. After she walked away, Adrian appeared at Elena's elbow. You did it. Did what? Made them see you. Made them understand. Elena looked around the gallery, at her paintings on the walls, at the red dots appearing beside sold pieces, at the life she'd built from courage and chance and choosing to believe in possibility. No, she said. I made me see me. The rest is just bonus. He kissed her temple. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. And she was. For the first time in her life, Elena was proud of who she'd become. Not because she'd married a billionaire or sold some paintings or escaped poverty, but because she'd been brave. Because she'd stopped running from happiness. Because she'd learned that being seen didn't mean being perfect. It meant being real. That night, back in their hotel room, Elena stood at the window looking out at Manhattan. Different city, same feeling. The world spreading out below her, full of possibility. Her phone buzzed, a text from Rosie sent by Margaret back in Chicago. Mom, I drew you a picture of your art show. You're a star. Love you. Attached was a crayon drawing of Elena in a gallery, surrounded by paintings and rainbows and what appeared to be a unicorn. Because of course Rosie had added a unicorn. Elena smiled and texted back. Love you too, sweetheart. See you tomorrow. Adrian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Ready for bed? In a minute. What are you thinking about? About how far I've come. About the woman I was a year ago and the woman I am now. And I like this version better. So do I, though I liked that version too. Liar. Okay, I didn't know that version, but I would have loved her if I'd had the chance. Elena turned in his arms. You know what scares me now? What? That I wasted so much time being afraid. That I could have had this years ago if I'd just been braver. Or maybe you had to wait for the right time, the right person, the right moment when bravery mattered. You think everything happens for a reason? No, I think life is chaos and chance, and sometimes you get lucky. We got lucky. That bullet could have killed you, could have killed Rosie. But it didn't, and we're here. That's not fate. That's just the universe throwing dice, and sometimes they land right. That's a depressing philosophy. Is it? I think it's hopeful. If it's all chaos, then we get to make our own meaning, choose our own happy ending. Elena considered this. So what's our happy ending? This. Right here. You and me and Rosie and whatever comes next. That's not an ending. That's a beginning. Exactly. They stood there in the Manhattan hotel room, 2 people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos and decided to hold on. Not because it was easy, not because it was perfect, but because it was theirs. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Elena Brooks had saved a little girl's life in a restaurant on a random Thursday afternoon. She'd taken a bullet and almost died and woken up to a world that suddenly saw her. But the real rescue, the one that mattered, was the one she'd given herself. She'd stopped hiding, stopped apologizing, stopped waiting for permission to want things. She'd chosen bravery, chosen love, chosen herself. And in the end, that was the story worth telling. Not the waitress who married a billionaire, not the hero who saved a child, not the artist who came from nothing. Just a woman who learned that she was worth saving, worth seeing, worth loving, exactly as she was. The city lights glittered below them, 1,000 stories playing out in 1,000 windows. And in one hotel room high above the streets, Elena Cole stood with her husband and smiled at the life they'd built together. A life that started with a bullet and a choice and a little girl who needed saving. A life that continued with courage and art and learning to believe in impossible things. A life that proved happy endings weren't just for other people. They were for anyone brave enough to reach for them.